Today's topic is debt always destroys. Given that the world is focused on a new dimension where most believe that governments are responsible for their well-being, the path ahead is fraught with danger. In other words, people are living beyond their means and they want the government to pay for their standard of existence. The last 2 years of attempted COVID control, vaccination costs, testing costs, business reimbursements, employment assistance packages, rental controls and policing, mask codes, etc., and access to venues, medical staffing, has resulted in governments borrowing millions of dollars which have to be added to the public purse. This debt may never be repaid. And it has to destroy the world as we knew it, or you knew it. When governments borrow, they always pay up to and beyond 3 times the market cost for the same product or service. It is a path that is opposed to the law of free market forces. Look at the diagram on your screen. This means that for every country controlled through communism, it will take a minimum of 3 times plus to generate residual income or surpluses or savings. And they will never change because they are hell-bent on control. They continually spend all their time and effort on military costs at the expense of their people and populations. The world had better hope that America takes the right path. Debt will always destroy countries, governments, businesses, clubs, associations, marriages and people. There is only one type of debt that can benefit the borrower, and that is constructive debt. Constructive debt is used to acquire assets that grow in value and can be maintained with known or reliable sources of revenue to service repayments. Only fools believe otherwise. The only constructive debt is based on property. Borrowing to invest in the share market is pure stupidity, which is modern day gambling. But not all property has a future. Russia has invaded Ukraine because it wants the land. And Ukraine's high-rise residential has been decimated and the cost to rebuild is astronomical. High-rise apartment investment is the worst type of property investment to be involved with. Not only in war times, but additional controls and regulations of titles, noises, smells, conduct and avoidance of adjoining owners that do not share the same hopes and ambitions as you. So where will the money come from? Just to service the debt, let alone repay the principal. It has to come from those left standing, the business sector, those that saved, those that made right choices, those that did not live to excess. Greater taxation is coming. The people that live in excess always want the straight, the smart, the clever to pay for their lifestyles. This is probably one of the greatest injustices and inequities of all time. At the end of the day, someone has to pay for the war and the damage and destruction and all human contingency costs such as emergency housing, medical costs, humanitarian assistance and rebuilding living quarters. Markets can only exist where there is stability in supply and demand. Without that, it is impossible to recognise opportunities and estimate costs in order to make margin and survive. So what drives markets? It used to be free markets, but governments always try to modify, regulate and subsidise markets. Or they try to do it themselves. they always take away freedom of choice and movement. Governments must downsize, remove themselves from capital development and allow free markets to operate and flourish. Free markets are true markets, not controlled markets or closed markets. Governments always stuff things up. They should stay out of markets and concentrate on maintaining services, and particularly through contracting services. Free markets can recognise demand, and they have the expertise to meet the demand in a far more effective manner than governments ever will. If this current runaway debt is not hauled in, then the only way left is to massively tax those still operating. The money has to come from somewhere. America is already $3 trillion in debt. It is finished as a world leader if it does not show restraint and start to repay the debt. The greatest power in the world is capital, or the control of capital, not debt. If you vote for those who will increase debt, you vote for your own destruction. Once debt is incurred, the meter starts ticking and it will never stop until every last cent is repaid. Debt always destroys, it impairs, it imprisons, and it turns to slavery. Mark Twain once said, "Buy land now, God is not making any more." Abraham Lincoln once said, "You cannot encourage the poor by discouraging the rich." No business can survive using the same principle of borrowing as governments. You must count the cost before proceeding, otherwise you will run out of options. Look before you leap has been totally ignored. To have a future, it must be earned, not borrowed. Capital is the new superpower in the world today, but most do not have it. You can have the greatest military might, but unless you can operate it, you are finished. That concludes today's presentation. I hope you get your copy of my book soon. Thanks for watching.